A very good afternoon to all present here. I first thank OPF Federation for giving me an
Good afternoon.
opportunity as a moderator for the grand event, the conference. So, hope you're all staying safe at home. I welcome you all for the National Webinar Conference on COVID-19 pandemic, the challenges in drug development and clinical research, which is organized by Operan Pharmacy Federation in association with Department of Pharmacy, KGR Institute of Technology and Management, Hyderabad. I would like to share a few words on Operan Pharmacy Federation. So it is an internationally established federation which aims to spread out pharmacy profession through various activities including exhibitions, conferences, seminars and workshops. The main objective of this brief event today is to provide high research works, wellness and community pharmacy related to pharmacy industry and provide a positive impact on global healthcare. I would also like to share a few words on today's event. The main objective of today's conference is to explore the opinions of Indian and global scientists on drug development and clinical research about possible solutions and opportunities from various pharmacy professionals. I will also throw a few words on KGR Institute of Technology and Management, Hyderabad. So the pharmacy department of KGR ITM was sponsored by KISA Society. This was pioneered by Dr. Govind Reddy, an industrialist who has 2 decades of experience in the same. Over to the session 1. I would like to introduce Dr. Gamba, who is a prudent alumni and of Bachelor of Pharmacy from Gulbarga University, 1993. He attained his MTech Biotechnology in the year 1996 and PhD Biotechnology from Andhra University in 2004. His major research expertise are liver ester synthesis, plant tissue culture, protein modeling studies, mucoadhesive and enzymatic synthesis of chiral drug molecules. He is now currently working as a professor and dean of Department of Pharmacy, KGR Institute of Technology and Management, Hyderabad. So I request Dr. Gamba to introduce the speakers for the session 1.
Yeah, good afternoon all. It's my privilege to introduce one of the familiar personality, Professor M.U.R. Naidu Garu, to this session. Professor Naidu Garu is former Dean, Faculty of Medicine and also former Professor and Head Department of Clinical Pharmacology and Therapeutics in NIMS, one of the prestigious medical science institution, Hyderabad. Presently, is a Central Research Institute of Unani Medicine Consultant Clinical Research, which is running under Department of Ayush, Government of India, and also is serving to NATCO Pharma Limited as Independent Director and is a visiting professor to American University of Caribbean, St. Martin, Poland, and also honorary professor by passion. He is acting as honorary professor for ESIC Medical College, Hyderabad. He attained his MBBS degree Jabalpur University in 1972 and MD 1977. By passion, he done his MD in pharmacology and then FCCP and FIPS. The important contributions to the clinical research area is we used to call based on his research as modern clinical pharmacologist, and a very simple word I used to say Bhishma Pitamaha in clinical pharmacology. Why? Because he conducted more than 40 bioequivalent studies and more than 50 clinical trials on different drugs with different doses forms, and developed and developed Department of Clinical Pharmacology and Therapeutics in Nizam Institute of Medical Sciences, Hyderabad. Professor Naidu Garu is pioneer in setting up of phase 1 clinical trials in India, developed many non-invasive pharmacodynamic models. As part of usually his dedication towards the work, he achieved n number of the awards. Being a great personality, he more than 20 awards. Among that, I would like to say very few achievements. That is prestigious Ella Pragada Subbarao Gold Medal for Excellence in Medical Research, which is obtained in 2002 from President of India. Uh, with the hands of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Garu. Awarded as Lifetime Achievement Award in 2016 from Narayana Institute of Medical Sciences, Fellow of Indian Pharmacological Society in 2000, and also UK Seth Gold Medal Award for Best Papers in 2000 and also 2007. Award for Excellence in Medical Profession in 1994 from All India Medical Society of India, WHO Fellowship for advancing training in ADR monitoring, which is worldwide looking towards ADR monitoring at Uppsala, Sweden. Nominated as a member of Clinical Pharmacology section of Indian Pharmacological Society, and also guide for and also examiner for PhD and DM, DNB Clinical Pharmacology, expert committee member of UGC Government of India. He published more than 11 test books. The most important test books were this pandemic corona, which is useful. That is designing clinical trials. That is one test book. And then he authors for principles of pharmacodynamic and also antioxidants in clinical practice, and membership 12 is having life membership in 12 organizations like Indian Pharmacological Society, American Society for Clinical Pharmacotherapeutics, Indian Rheumatism Association, Indian Society of Hypertension, like that, and also published research articles nationally 7 and internationally 80. In the end, I would like to say only one point I want to highlight. Currently is one of the ICMR task force member for COVID-19. Professor Naidu Garu is highlighting drug discovery for COVID-19 on this day. Thank you. I welcome Naidu Garu to speak few words on drug discovery for COVID-19.
Sir, thank you very much for inviting me to this forum, and thank you very much for introducing me, because we all are actually having this issue related to COVID-19 and coronavirus for very long time. And although there are some drugs are there, but if you really go and develop a drug, we know that the new drug development for a particular problem little takes time. So in this situation, because we have got emergency, most of the people at this point of time are doing what is known as repurposing, where actually virtual screening of various drugs and some of the known drugs which are already there as the antiviral property, those actually testings are done, and we are also getting some beneficial effect. But yet till now we don't have very full proof that this is the drug which is very safe and very effective. Many drugs are under clinical trial, and some are really working very well, some are associated with some problem. And as actually the COVID-19 is coming up, many issues are coming. We are now people are telling it is not purely a viral disease, it's associated with various complications, especially cytokine storm and associated complications. So people are also suggesting that there are possibility of using some of the drugs which should be used with the antiviral drug to really treat the patient as a full. So complication associated with COVID-19 also has to be looked for the treatment. And we know that one of the major issues is concern about development of vaccine. Many institutions are trying to develop, and we hope, I think, very soon, within maybe 3 to 6 months, probably we may be able to get the vaccine. But presently, definitely, we all are actually in the era where we are trying to develop and find out a very safe, effective drug. So many drugs are under clinical trial. If you go and see the literature, whenever actually there is any possibility of repurposing of a particular drug, people are trying. So there are a lot of actually challenges with us to develop a really a very effective drug for COVID-19. So in this particular, actually, the talk which I am going, I am just trying to explain some of the issues which are related to development of a antiviral drug and actually getting some of the leads information on in vitro study, in vivo study, in animal models, and some of the mechanism which we know which is actually possessed by antiviral drug. There are possibility to develop the some of the drugs, and in recent there are some drugs has been actually started using and some data is coming. So I would like to just explain that how presently the scenario is going as per the new drug development for COVID-19. And in my talk, a very small portion I will cover with the vaccine development. Drug and vaccine development for coronavirus and COVID-19 infection. Introduction. The COVID-19 pandemic represents the greatest global public health crisis of the generation. The speed and volume of clinical trial launched to investigate potential therapy for COVID-19 highlight both the need and capability to produce high quality evidence given the middle of the pandemic. Till date, no therapies have been shown to be very effective in COVID-19 infection. No proven effective therapies for this virus currently exist. The rapid expanding knowledge regarding severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2 virology provides a very significant number of potential targets. Antimalarials, antivirals, antibiotics, and many other drugs are under clinical trial. This includes hydroxychloroquine, azithromycin, lopinavir, ritonavir, favipiravir, remdesivir, baloxavir, tocilizumab, and interferon beta. Coronavirus and COVID-19. This is a electron microscope picture of coronavirus. A electron microscope image showing the spherical particles of the coronavirus, which is shown in blue color from the first US case of COVID-19. This picture shows the generic structure of coronavirus, including COVID-19. This picture shows the timeline and clinical course of COVID-19 infection. The incubation period is 6 to 7 days, and symptoms include fever, cough, fatigue, anorexia, anosmia, myalgia, and diarrhea. The critical illness is seen in 5% of patients, while the severe illness is seen in about 14% of the patient. Dyspnea or breathlessness is seen in 40% of patients. This picture shows the global COVID-19 death rate. It has started somewhere in March 20th, 2020, and then gradually it has increased and peaked somewhere again on April 20th, 20. Then slowly it has come down, and on May 26, 2020, it was slightly lower. But now presently we know that there is a lot of fluctuation and trend in global COVID-19 deaths. Introduction. Severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, Corona 2 virus is responsible for COVID-19 infection. This is associated with very high morbidity and mortality. Till now, we do not have highly effective and safe drug for COVID-19. Many pharma industries, universities, and institutions all over the world are searching for effective drugs. We know that the new drug development is a very long process. There are many drugs under clinical trial for COVID-19. Scientists and researchers continue their hand to find the best, safe, and effective alternative medicine. As the generic structure, various elements, and mechanism of COVID-19 viral infection is known, the repurposing mode of drug discovery may be very fast and potential method to find a effective drug for COVID-19. This figure represents the viral life cycle of severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus and the potential drug target. Tocilizumab and sarilumab, they bind with interleukin 6 receptor and prevents its activation and signaling. Chemostat isolate inhibit the transmembrane serine proteases 2 and prevent the viral cell entry. Arbidol targets S protein and angiotensin converting enzyme 2 interaction. It also inhibits the membrane fusion of viral envelope. Coming to chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine, it inhibits the viral entry and endocytosis with various mechanisms. Lopinavir and darunavir inhibits chymotrypsin-like proteases, and ribavirin, remdesivir, and favipiravir inhibits the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. So these are the important targets on which drug can act. This picture shows the various important drug targets. Although all severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus proteins are the potential drug targets. Some are likely to be more easy to find a drug against, in part because they play principal role in the viral life cycle and also lack human protein. These targets include spike glycoprotein, papain-like proteases, envelope protein, membrane protein, RNA-dependent RA polymerase, angiotensin converting enzyme 2, non-structured protein, and open reading frame. This figure shows the possible therapeutic target for COVID-19, a cytokine release syndrome. The severe acute respiratory syndrome COVID-19 uses angiotensin converting enzyme 2 and transmembrane serine protease 2 as cell entry receptor. This is followed by a cytokine related syndrome ARDS, which is induced by the hyperactivation of the transcription factor NFKB, most likely in the non-immune cells, including the lung epithelial cells. Angiotensin converting enzyme 2 molecule on the cell surface are occupied by SARS CoV-2. Angiotensin 2 then increases in the serum due to the reduction of angiotensin converting enzyme 2 mediated degradation. The COVID-19 itself activates NFKB via pattern recognition receptor, that is PPRS, and accumulated angiotensin induces inflammatory cytokine including TNF-alpha and interleukin 6 soluble protein. via disintegrin and metalloproteinases, that is ADMA17. This is followed by the activation of IL-6 amplifier, that is IL-6 AMP, which describe enhanced NFKB activation machinery via the co-activation of NFKB and transcription factor STAT3. The molecules which are underlined indicate the possible therapeutic target for COVID-19, which is a cytokine release syndrome. So these are the various mechanisms which can be targeted by the drugs. Antiviral research. Let us see the processes and various activities which are carried out for developing broad spectrum antiviral drug. Many viruses infect human population. It is shown on the left side of the figure. The list of 16 viruses which are well known to cause human viral disease is shown in the center of the figure. Today I am going to add the 17th one, that is severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. On the right side of the figure, we can see the various viral host targets which are responsible for viral activity. Many non-antiviral drugs are known to possess a good antiviral activity and can be a very good candidate for repurposing and developing new antiviral drugs. These are shown on the left side of the figure. And these drugs, they act on the various viral host targets which are shown on the right side of the figure. This picture shows the drugs which are under clinical trial for various viral infection. Today, many drugs are under clinical trials for their effect on viral infection against well-known viral host target. This table shows the antiviral drug action on various viruses cells, their cell viability and cell toxicity assay, and the value of CC50 and IC50 with plaque and receptor gene expression assay report. Network of interaction of 55 viruses is shown in this picture. The dark brown line represents the novel antiviral agent. The blue line represents validated antiviral agent, and the light gray line shows the known antiviral agents. Recently, in Bangladesh, a clinical trial was conducted in COVID-19 patient, showed a very good clinical improvement with the combination therapy with ivermectin and doxycycline. So there is a possibility that ivermectin and doxycycline may be a very good antiviral drug. Now let us see what are the actually evidences which is available to use these drugs. Recently, FDA has approved ivermectin as a antiviral drug, as it has shown to inhibit the virus replication of coronavirus 2. This figure shows the mechanism of antiviral action of ivermectin. Ivermectin blocks the coronavirus protein to produce its antiviral effect. This bar diagram shows the effect of ivermectin on coronavirus. Ivermectin causes the time-dependent inhibition of growth of coronavirus, and one can see here that the peak effect is seen within 1 to 2 days of the treatment. In e-gene expression assay, ivermectin produced a concentration-dependent inhibition of coronavirus with IC50 value of 2.8 and 2.4 micromoles. In RDRP gene expression assay also, ivermectin has shown a concentration-dependent inhibition of coronavirus with IC50 value of 2.5 and 2.2 micromole. Coming to doxycycline, this is a short communication which is mentioning about the in vitro antiviral activity of doxycycline against coronavirus. As per the summary of this short communication, doxorubicin has shown a very good antiviral activity against coronavirus with its IC50 value of 5.4 plus minus 0.4 micromole. This research article was published on the in vitro antiviral activity of doxycycline against vesicular stomatitis virus, that is commonly known as VSV. This figure shows the effect of doxycycline. It has shown a very good antiviral effect, and there is a significant change on the various viral gene expressions of TLR3, E21, and DAX. In this histogram, effect is shown on vesicular stomatitis virus and JEV, that is Japanese encephalitis virus. There is a significant inhibition of the viral replication, and the cell viability assay shows the CC50 of 8.45 micromoles per ml. This figure shows the effect of doxycycline on tumor cells. There was a significant dose-dependent inhibition of replication of H1299 and A549 tumor cells by doxycycline. Duration response effect of doxycycline on vesicular stomatitis virus. It has inhibited the viral growth within 2 hours. This clearly suggests that there is a very early onset of action of doxycycline against VSV. In summary, doxycycline had a very significant antiviral activity against vesicular stomatitis virus with 1 to 20 microgram per ml concentration as a IC50 value. This review article was published in British Journal of Oncology. It was entitled as Minocycline for Beyond an Antibiotic. This figure shows the clinical potential of minocycline. Due to its antibiotic activity, its anti-apoptotic, anti-inflammatory, and immunomodulating properties, and the association of both its non-antibiotic and antimicrobial effect. It has been suggested that minocycline is very effective in many clinical conditions, including cancer. This figure shows the various activity of minocycline on inflammatory markers. Minocycline has a very good anti-inflammatory activity. It affects immune cells like microglia, T cells, monocytes, and neutrophils. It also acts on various enzymes and also acts on the cell proliferation, apoptosis, and on oxidative stress for its good anti-inflammatory activity. Now let us see the antiviral activity of minocycline. This research article, in vitro effect of minocycline on West Nile virus, that is WNV infection, was published in Journal of Virology. In this figure, we can see minocycline inhibited the microglial activation in the brain during the WNV infection very significant. These histograms shows the effect of minocycline on various chemokines. We can see here that there is a significant change in many of the chemokines, including CCL2, CCL3, CCL5, and CCL7, showing a very good antiviral activity. All histogram in this figure shows the effect of minocycline on various biomarkers. Minocycline acts on many of the inflammatory biomarkers, including interferon alpha, interleukin 4, interleukin 1 beta, interleukin 6, interleukin 7, interleukin 10, interleukin 13, and TNF alpha. So it has got a very broad spectrum anti-inflammatory activity. This is another evidence of effect of minocycline on inflammation. Minocycline reduces the concentration of pro-inflammatory gene expression marker, that is M1, and it increases the anti-inflammatory biomarker M2 gene expression, again suggesting minocycline has a good anti-inflammatory activity. Minocycline also inhibited the cell growth of various cells which are tested. In this figure, we can see the effect of minocycline on inducible nitric oxide, or INOS. Here also we can clearly see that there is a significant effect of minocycline on inducible nitric oxide. In conclusion, minocycline, a common second generation antibiotic, has been shown to possess several other beneficial effects other than its intended use. The antiviral role of minocycline has generated considerable interest from the last decade. It was first shown to be beneficial in preventing human immunodeficiency virus (HIV) infection, and later it was reported to improve the cognitive efficacy associated with neuroaids. However, its antiviral efficacy are not limited to retrovirus alone. In animal models or in vitro systems of flavivirus infection, especially Japanese encephalitis virus, minocycline has been shown to be highly effective. However, not all the effects are based on direct inhibition of viral replication. In general, anti-inflammatory and immunomodulatory property of minocycline are also responsible in part in improving and protecting effect. Owing to the fact that minocycline is well tolerated by most people and that the drug has nearly 40 years of history of usage, it is an exciting prospect to try out in COVID-19 infection. Vaccine development for coronavirus. Coronavirus vaccine development. All around the world, many companies, universities, and institutions are developing vaccine to prevent the novel coronavirus infection. At least 135 labs around the world are trying to develop vaccine. The maximum number of the vaccine development program, that is 55, is going on in United States. Coming to India, there are 5 institutions, those who are engaged in developing vaccine for coronavirus. This picture shows the possibility of various types of vaccine which can be developed. It includes number 1, DNA and RNA vaccine, number 2, live attenuated vaccine, number 3, inactivated vaccine, number 4, subunit vaccine, and number 5, vaccine developed towards the viral vector. Role of vitamin D in immune system. This picture shows the metabolism and action of vitamin D. Vitamin D we get from 2 sources. One is the skin, from where we get vitamin D3, and from diet we get vitamin D2 and D3. After the absorption, vitamin D goes into the liver and it is converted to 25-hydroxyvitamin D. In the kidney, it is converted to 125-hydroxyvitamin D, which is actually the active form. This 125-hydroxyvitamin D acts on bone, intestine, immune system, vascular system, and pancreatic beta cells. This picture shows the potential mechanism of an effect of vitamin D on cardiovascular disease. Vitamin D deficiency is associated with increase in inflammation, decreased insulin sensitivity, then there is increase in the endothelial dysfunction, there is a rise in blood pressure and also arterial stiffness. So due to the deficiency of vitamin D, the risk of cardiovascular disease is very much increased. This picture shows the vitamin D metabolic pathway. 25-hydroxyvitamin D, that is also known as calcidiol, is an inactive form. It is converted to its active form, that is 1-25 hydroxy vitamin D, also known as calcitriol. It has got two actions. One is the endocrine action, responsible for calcium and phosphorus homeostasis, then bone remodeling, maintenance of blood pressure, and control of insulin secretion. The other action of vitamin D includes autocrine and paracrine action, which is responsible for the regulation of cell proliferation and differentiation, and then immune regulatory function. This has got nothing to do with the blood calcium level. So there are two actions of vitamin D, endocrine and autocrine and paracrine action. The role of vitamin D in immunity. Vitamin D acts on both the innate immunity and adaptive immunity. Vitamin D acts through all four immune cells: macrophages, dendritic cell, T cell, and B cell. And vitamin D acts on multiple pathways on body immune system. It is a very good immunomodulator of the immune system in the body. This picture shows the generic structure of coronavirus, including COVID-19, and various sites in coronavirus where drug can be acting, with a special reference to action of vitamin D. The various sites where drug can act includes glycoprotein trimers, viral nucleotide and RNA genome, then membrane protein, hemagglutinin, steroid dimers, and small envelope protein pentamer. The key site for the antiviral activity of vitamin D includes the small envelope protein pentamer. So this is the major site where vitamin D acts as an antiviral agent. The proposed protective mechanism of vitamin D against COVID-19. In this regard, vitamin D supplementation has been shown to suppress CD26, a cell surface receptor which is thought to facilitate the entry of COVID-19 virus into the host cells. So vitamin D actually protects the entry of COVID-19 virus into the host cell. There is a good evidence that enhanced vitamin D status may protect against the critical immunological sequelae, which are thought to elicit poorer clinical outcome in COVID-19 infection. These include prolonged interferon gamma response and persistent interleukin 6 elevation, which are a negative prognostic indicator in acute ill pneumonia patients, including those with COVID-19. So these are two very important mechanisms by which vitamin D is useful in COVID-19 infection. Vitamin D and immune system. Vitamin D plays role in homeostasis of calcium and phosphate, and therefore is necessary to maintain the metabolic and skeletal health. Number two, vitamin D interacts with immune cells, expressing its receptor and thereby influencing innate and adaptive immune responses. Number three, vitamin D serves as a potent stimulant of innate immunity while it is thought to be tolerogenic immunomodulator in adaptive immunity. And number four, the recent studies support vitamin D as a promising and the safe nutrient for prevention and adjunctive treatment for several immune-associated disorders. Vitamin D and its role in viral infection. Number one, there is the induction of antimicrobial peptide. Number two, there is a immune regulatory function associated with vitamin D. There is the interaction with cellular and viral factors, induction of autophagy, apoptosis, epigenetic elements, and lastly, there is a genetic polymorphism. So these are the main underlying mechanisms by which the vitamin D deficiency contributes to viral disease development. So vitamin D is a very good supplement for treating viral infection. In this presentation, I will discuss about the role of vitamin K in the immune system. Coming to vitamin K27, it is also known as menaquinone and MK7. This table shows the various forms of vitamin K, their sources and activities. Vitamin K1 is also known as alloquinone. The primary source is green leafy vegetables. Second is vitamin K2, MK4. The primary source is some meats, eggs and cheese. Coming to vitamin K2, MK7, the main primary source is natto cheese, and then the long chain menaquinone, that is also known as MK10 and MK13, the main source is colon bacteria. If you see the column of vitamin K2 and MK7, it is well absorbed, provides the highest vitamin K activity. It also activates the vitamin K dependent protein outside the liver. This is one of the most active vitamin K form. The important key points about vitamin K. One, vitamin K can act as a cofactor for some plasma protein, thereby affecting immune and inflammatory responses, particularly which is mediated by T cell. Number two, vitamin K can inhibit cell growth by promoting apoptosis and autophagy. And number three, the low level of vitamin K has been associated with inflammatory diseases and some types of cancer. Magnesium and its role in immune response. This review article is very interesting and informative, entitled The Possible Role of Magnesium on the Immune System, which is published by M. Tam et al. Magnesium has a strong relationship with immunity. Number two, magnesium stimulates both non-specific and specific immune response, also known as innate immunity and adaptive immunity. And number three, magnesium acts on inflammation, apoptosis, and alters the number of functions of innate immune cells population. So it is a very important micronutrient for promoting the immune response in the body. This was very interesting experiment conducted in mice. The authors have examined the effect of magnesium depletion on the immune system of mice. When the mice were fed with magnesium deficient diet, their immune response was very much reduced, which was reflected as number one, there is the activation of inflammatory response and secretion of pro-inflammatory cytokines. Number two, there was apoptosis and release of second messenger. And number three, it affects the cell-mediated immunity and there is the activation of macrophages, neutrophils, and endothelial cells. It clearly shows that during the deficiency of magnesium, the body immune response is also lowered. This figure shows the role of magnesium in vitamin D synthesis and action. We get vitamin D from two main sources. One is the sunlight exposure and second is diet supplement. From sunlight, ultraviolet rays, skin synthesizes vitamin D3. We get vitamin D2 and vitamin D3 from diet. This vitamin D2 and D3 have to bind to vitamin D binding protein in the gut for absorption. And this binding with vitamin D binding protein requires magnesium. The absorbed vitamin D then goes to liver where it is converted to 25 hydroxyvitamin D by an enzyme 25 hydroxylase. Action of this enzyme 25 hydroxylase also requires magnesium. This 25 hydroxyvitamin D is not a active form of vitamin D. This inactive form is converted to its active form mainly in the kidney to 125 dihydroxyvitamin D by another enzyme that is 1-alpha hydroxylase. This reaction also requires magnesium in kidney. In other tissues, 25 hydroxyvitamin D is converted to 24-25 hydroxyvitamin D by enzyme 24 hydroxylase. This enzyme action also requires magnesium. So all the enzymes and the binding action of vitamin D requires presence of magnesium. So for absorption and action of vitamin D, magnesium is very much essential. The key point about the role of magnesium on the action of vitamin D. Number one, magnesium helps in activation of vitamin D and acts as a cofactor for binding of vitamin D to vitamin D receptor, which is also known as VDR, on the cells of vitamin D immune function. Second, without magnesium, vitamin D is really not very useful. Magnesium activates hundreds of enzymes which are involved in important biological reaction, including the enzyme that play a role in vitamin D metabolism and activation. Number three, studies have suggested that consuming magnesium can reduce the risk of vitamin D deficiency. A study done in 2013 has found that people who consume good amount of magnesium were less likely to have low level of vitamin D compared to people who did not get enough magnesium. Number four, people who get enough magnesium require less vitamin D supplementation to reach adequate vitamin D levels in the body. And last, fifth one, By consuming an optimum amount of magnesium, one may be able to reduce the risk of vitamin D deficiency. So, magnesium plays a very important role in the action of vitamin D. Various scientific evidences strongly suggest very good immunomodulatory, anti-inflammatory, and antiviral activities of vitamin D, vitamin K27, and magnesium. Vitamin D, vitamin K27, and magnesium are essential nutrients. They are very safe and less expensive. Thus, clinical trials is warranted to evaluate efficacy of vitamin D with vitamin K27 and magnesium in COVID-19 patients. Thanks. The use of antimalarial drugs against viral infection. In recent decades, drugs used to treat malaria infection have been shown to be beneficial for many other diseases, including viral infection. In particular, they have received special attention due to the lack of availability of very effective antiviral drugs against new emerging viruses like HIV, dengue virus, chikungunya virus, Ebola virus, etc., or against a classical infection due to drug resistance viral strains like human psychomegalovirus. So antiviral drug activity with antimalarial drug has shown to be quite promising.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your wonderful lecture.
Thank you for enlightening the importance of vitamin D, K, magnesium on corona.
Yeah. Is there any
Actually, it is a very
question?
useful at this moment to more number of the people to increase and also to boost the immunity against this. And then particularly, usually everyone knows that we have to consume citrus fruits and more quantity of the vitamin D, K, and magnesium. But how it will add? Then what is the mechanism behind that? Why do we have? It is enlightened, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So,
very
thank you,
much.
sir, for the wonderful session.
Yeah. Do you have any questions out there from
Yeah, the
audience?
session is open for discussion. Participants, you can kindly post your questions. There is one question from Govind Tomar. He
Yeah,
wants to explain
yeah.
lenolenimab mechanism.
Yeah, these type of drugs actually mostly we consider there is a antigen antibody reaction. Normally there are some antigen elements which are released that is known as the viral particle or this thing. So when it is there, that lead to the formation antigen antibody reaction because of joining with the virus element, and then they are responsible for decreasing the activity of various immune system and cells like B cell, T cell, and there is a significant suppression of action of actually T cell and exhaustion of the T cell. So this particular problem associated with the viral protein actually is actually inhibited by these type of drugs. So they are mostly actually working as the immunomodulator, and they are very good coadjuvant along with the antiviral drug. They definitely help.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Ashni Nagvi. The most reliable crystal structure for COVID-19 in drug discovery.
I may not be able to answer because there are various people are claiming. I mentioned there are many targets, and as we know that it is very difficult a particular drug to act a particular target. But presently, we cannot say that actually which is the target or which is the component where the drug will be most successful. Lot of studies are going. I told you that because now we know the complete generic structure and the pathway of the COVID infection, which I showed in one of the slide, there are many places actually drugs are people are trying to develop. But at this point of time, it is very difficult to say which actually the target the drug will be more effective.
Thank you. So the next question is from Sharat Chandra. As I heard, coronavirus genetically transformed to 96 structures. Is that true or false?
I cannot answer because again I'm telling that different opinions are coming. Some people are totally negating that this is not true. Some people are strongly think, but still there's no very good scientific foolproof evidence to answer this question. There are a lot of debate is going on.
Okay, one more question, sir. Why Dr. Not stop the spread of Corona-19 patients' infection one body to another person?
Here, one thing is that because still there is a issue related that how transmission are there. Because initially they told that the transmission is there because of actually release of the virus particle and which is inhaled and coming to the other person. So they have suggested that the most important thing protection is to use mask or something. But still we don't know the full that how the transmission occurs into that condition. That's the reason that in spite of using most of the way to prevent, but still we are actually getting whether in the atmosphere some virus particle is there. Another very recently one important issue has come. They told that the people those who are asymptomatic, we were thinking that asymptomatic patient may not be transmitting. So many patients, those who are asymptomatic, because they don't have symptoms, they are meeting with various people and they have shown that they are also transmitting the disease. So there are various reasons due to that probably it may be happening, but still we are trying to find out exactly how it is happening.
So one more question from Surya Prabhakar Singh. What is the minimum period of clinical trials for research of COVID-19 drugs and what are their parameters?
Yeah, if you are talking of clinical trial for COVID, I will divide into two. One is actually the clinical trial for the treatment of COVID, and another is prophylaxis. When you come to the treatment of COVID, we know that the from the incubation period to really that it is usually about 14 to 21 days. So the clinical trial, if you are talking that it may be maximum 3 weeks because within 3 weeks you should be able to find out your drug is effective or not. There are various parameters. One of the important parameter which normally we do that the clinical improvement. I told you that there are various signs symptoms. Then another thing which people have come to know today that there are some biomarkers which are actually relevant to the COVID. One thing is that the high sensitive CRP and CRP, which are actually very well known to lead to cytokine storm. And then I told you that one of the very important actually biomarker what they found that is actually LL37. So in a clinical situation, if you are trying to evaluate your antiviral drug, the total duration of trial may be maximum 21 days. One is the clinical improvement. The second thing is that how long actually patient is staying, that is known as the length of stay in the hospital. Secondly, whether they are actually requiring ventilator. How many hours they are using ventilator, that is another parameter. And third thing is that whether they need ICU admission. So these are clinical parameters. Biochemical parameter, I told you that actually inflammatory markers are there, and even people have started actually looking for what is known as the T cell exhaustion. So one can estimate the T cell and they can find out. And if your drug is like I'm talking of vitamin D, which is thinking that immunomodulator, definitely I would like to see what is happening to status of T cells. So these are presently the biomarkers or the clinical parameters which are commonly used for evaluation of this thing. Coming to prophylaxis, Again, in case of prophylaxis, we have got only one parameter is that do RT-PCR before starting your prophylaxis and go on giving a prophylaxis. And if the individual is complaining of any actually sign and symptom, check RT-PCR. And there is no duration. The minimum duration they mentioned for the prophylaxis trial is at least 5 weeks.
The next question is Nagaraju Jeshitti. Dexamethasone is a steroid which reduces immunity. How it will be useful in COVID?
Yeah. Now, actually, in case of COVID, what the definitely this what dosage of corticosteroid telling when you are using for very long time, definitely immunity comes down. But what they told that especially in the patient those who are developing cytokine storm, there is a significant amount of inflammatory reaction, and well known they have shown that there's a marked increase in actually high sensitive CRP and CRP. Because of strong actually inflammation, the corticosteroid are used as a very potent actually anti-inflammatory drug. But not to improve, definitely they may be decreasing the immunity, but in case of COVID, we are using for very short duration. It is just a life-saving, especially when the patient is going into very severe cytokine storm and getting admitted and getting severe respiratory problem, then the dexamethasone is very, very useful. But routinely in the evaluation and the treatment, it is not. It's only patient those who are really becoming very serious. Dexamethasone has been shown to be very effective because of very potent anti-inflammatory activity. But long usage not there like we do in bronchial asthma or rheumatoid arthritis where we use for very long time. At that point of time, actually the immune deficiency made up. For very short time, what they are using as a life-saving measure.
Okay, next question is, what are all the adverse effects of proteases inhibitors on body cells?
One of the thing is that they have mentioned that it actually associated with changes in the inflammatory responses, and they have mentioned that some of the inflammatory reactions may be enhanced. So that's the reason they are telling that patient those who are diabetes or patient those who are cancer where there is significant amount of decrease in immunity, there may be possibility that they may be susceptible to some of the more infection. Even they have mentioned that these drugs may actually increase the susceptibility of individual because of bacterial infection. And then there are general side effects are there with most of this like actually GIT irritation and skin, all those. But per se, there may be possibility that the sensitivity for bacteria, all those things may be enhanced.
So, next question. A vaccine will prevent the attack of corona and it won't cure already attacked corona. To cure corona, we need another medication.
You are definitely safe because vaccine, any vaccine actually we are using as a prophylactic. It only prevent. Definitely when individual develop the infection, definitely we need a drug to treat. That's the reason now the clinical trial is going on. I told you that too. One is the prophylaxis, where even people are using drugs like your hydroxychloroquine to prevent this thing. Or I'm talking like high dose of vitamin D has been shown. It prevents the actually joining of the virus particle to the cell. What you are talking when already the virus has attacked the cell, definitely you need a treatment with a very potent antiviral drug. So there are two different therapeutic area. One is for the treatment, other is for prophylaxis. Vaccine is only going to prevent the infection.
So next question, is there any approach to counter the protein which inhibits immune response such as PL-PRO?
Yeah, there are because some drugs have been shown and there is a virtual screening also is going on, but still this work is only in the in vitro. But there are some study published. It is one of the possibility. But as I told you that there are various pathways through which actually corona affects there, and there are many targets. So, but there are some studies are going on. Still, we are waiting for a very good data in this respect.
So I have one question.
Yeah.
So you are speaking about vitamin D elucidation, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, there are formulated or fortified foods which are enriched with vitamin D.
Yeah.
So, what are all the impacts of those food
Yeah.
products, or
Now here,
what are all the
yeah,
ways we can
yeah.
incorporate the vitamin D?
Yeah, yeah. Now here actually I want to explain very important. In one of the slide, I told you that when you use vitamin D, it has to be converted to the active form. That is 125 this thing, and it has got two action. What we are talking the fortified or the routine use of vitamin D, like actually 1,000 or 4,000. This only actually provides you the requirement for endocrine action. What actually I was talking that vitamin D which we are proposing for the autokine and parakine, where you need a very high dose, because it has been very clearly shown that this activity of vitamin D which is talking as the immunomodulator needs a very high concentration, and there is a need that the vitamin D has to go and occupy the vitamin D receptor for immunomodulatory. So it has been very clearly shown that the routine administration of vitamin D or the diet supplement what you're asking may not be sufficient to have a activity in case of COVID-19. For COVID-19 infection, if you are giving vitamin D to the patient, one of the primary requirement is that you have to achieve 50 to 60 nanogram of vitamin activity within 1 to 2 days. So it is not possible if you take about 1,000 or 4,000 to get this concentration. You have to use minimum 2 to 4 lakhs of vitamin D as a single dose to get this dose actually concentration within 2 to 3 days. And most of the people, those who are vitamin deficient, where the vitamin D levels are below 20 nanogram, they take very long time. And there are studies now going on what is known as a single high dose vitamin D in the treatment of COVID. And very recently, FDA has approved one of the study which is going on in France, and clinical trial is started. So for the COVID infection, the dose of vitamin D should be very high, because we want to develop the concentration very quickly. Otherwise, the immunomodulatory activity will not be reached.
Thank you, sir.
I have one question.
Yeah.
As we are living in democratic country, we have more democracy. Some predictors are predicting by stating that November is more crucial to India. On what grounds they are predicting, I don't know, but is there any scientific reason on that?
About that, I didn't understand your question.
So November is more crucial to India towards the facing of coronavirus.
I think I don't have the answer for this, because how they are this is all actually prediction. And one of the possibilities they are telling that there will be, they are thinking that a lot of the people will be moving from different places, and that may be one of the reason. But exactly, I don't know the answer for this.
Yeah, it doesn't have any scientific reason.
One of the major thing they are telling that they cannot continue the lockdown for very long time. They have to allow all the activity, and they will allow even the people to come from various places. And we think that may be the reason. I don't think there is any other reason for thinking that there will be increase in the incidence of the actually COVID-19 in November. I don't think there is any other reason for that.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So I think with this, we will end the session 1. Yes. Hello.
Yeah, thank you very much for giving
Thank
me
you,
the
sir.
opportunity to interact. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Sridhar.
Yeah, thank you very much. It is indeed very much insights into various drug development pathways and yeah, various promising molecules, and we will soon have something more which is accurate treatment for the COVID, which will save the human race across the globe.
Thank you.
And thank you for all your insights and knowledge on this session.
Thank you, sir. So